This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Hey guys, Jake here. Welcome to Miles Memories Weekly, episode 211. Miles Memories is a show about nothing and is filmed in front of a live studio audience. This is a show where I talk about painting, modeling, and wargaming experiences from the week. Now you might be thinking to yourself, Jay, you put out a YouTube video every single week. How? Could I possibly have more to say? Well, I do, and here goes. This week, well actually last week, Games Workshop showed off some big important things for Warhammer 40,000 New Crusade book. But new cards, and new cards are very, very important. It's gonna shake up the game quite a bit, but before I get into that, I wanna talk about squares and what today's sponsor Squarespace can do with them. Squarespace allows anyone to design the website of their dreams with the most powerful and easiest design tools in the industry, like Design Blueprint. Using AI technology empowers anyone to build a more personalized website tailored to their needs, crafting a bespoke digital identity. Choose from a professionally curated selection of styling options to build a unique online presence from the ground up. Squarespace makes sure it's easy to launch your website and get discovered fast with integrated optimized SEO tools so you show up more often to more people and grow the way you want. With Squarespace, it's never been easier to set up a unique online storefront. Whether your services are physical, digital, or service-based, selling your wares has never been easier. Squarespace offers unmatched ability to showcase your unique wares with images, videos, reviews, and add-ons, all capped off with their seamless checkout tools. Letting your customers use whatever system they prefer, whether Klarna, ACH Direct Deposit, Apple Pay, Afterpay, or ClearPay. Squarespace offers a free trial for you to dip your feet into and test the waters, and ready to dive in headfirst, and go to squarespace.com/EonsBattle or follow the link in the description below to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. The new cards for Warhammer 40,000 are called the Chapter Approved 2025 to 26, so we get cards that go for 1 year of 40k, and I feel like that's a little quick. I feel like it's a little quick because I play a lot of 40k, but I don't play that much 40k. I played a whole bunch of Leviathan because I was prepping for a tournament, and then like right before the tournament happened, it switched from Leviathan to Pariah Nexus, and so by the time I had learned all like 25 cards in the deck that I need to be aware of and all of the different missions and stuff, I had to immediately switch to Pariah Nexus. But with Pariah Nexus, I've only played like 15 games, which doesn't sound very good, but each of those games is like 3 hours, so that's like 2 full days of Warhammer 40,000. I feel like that's a respectable number of games. And now I gotta throw out the Pariah Mission deck so that I can get the new deck. And it's a little quick. I mean, obviously you can keep playing with whatever. Near me though, at my local shop, there's a lot of 40k sharks who want to be playing the newest, best stuff, like, cause they're test prepping for tournaments. And so if I'm like, hey, is there any chance that we can just play Pariah Nexus? And also, can I bring my Tantaluses even though they're not technically in the game? Like, for some people that I play against, that's obviously completely fine. But some people are gonna be like, can we play real 40k so that this is a real game and I'm actually prepping this for things that I could run into at a 40k tournament? And so I totally get where they're coming from. And actually reading the article about these cards, because when I first saw them, I was like, darn it, I'm gonna have to pre-order these because I forgot to pre-order Pariah Nexus, and then I was just calling up every local game store near me before the tournament trying to get a copy of these cards because I didn't pre-order them, and they sold out instantaneously because every single 40k player wants these cards on the same day. It was a little bit of a mess. I'm gonna try to get the new deck a little bit sooner. And it's a little, it was a little bit annoying that I have to get this new deck. But reading the article about this new deck and how it changes the game a little bit, I actually think it's looking really, really good. I think Pariah Nexus is an improvement over Leviathan. Some of the Leviathan cards were just like weirdly easy to pull off or weirdly impossible to pull off. And what was there before Secret Missions? It wasn't twists, but it was like, I don't even remember, no one used them. Nobody used whatever the original Secret Missions were. I kinda liked the Secret Missions. They were kind of a catch-up mechanic where you stop scoring, I think, on primary, but then you can get an automatic 20 points if you get your card off. And some of them were really, really easy, like have your Warlord in the enemy deployment zone at the end of the game, essentially. And that's really, really powerful if you're playing against World Eaters and they bring Angron, who can come back to life and then deep strike onto the board. Sean got that secret mission on me a couple of times, and it was really annoying because it's like, it just automatically happens for you. Meanwhile, I have to run this movement 4 Necron Lord up the board. Yeah. But The new thing is looking really, really spicy. Although that's not even the thing that's gotten me the most excited about these cards. One thing I've discovered about Warhammer 40,000 is there's something to 1,000-point games. 2,000-point games are the standard, and it's a little much. Turn 1 and 2, when both players have like 16 units on the board, it takes a really, really long time, and then usually after turn 2, half of each of our armies has died, and then turn 3, 4, and especially 5, sometimes 5 is just mathing out what happens because we've just got a little gaggle of half-dead units on the board. And so full games of 40k, 2,000 points is a little bit much. 1,000 points is kind of the sweet spot, especially on the smaller board size of Warhammer 40k 10th edition. 1,000 points with the deck of cards, the 5 objectives, half of the available models on either side of the board, it actually feels really, really good. The problem with a 1,000-point game, though, is you do have to have a strong gentleman's agreement with your opponent that you're gonna write appropriate 1,000-point lists. You can't bring Avatar of Cain or Rogaldorn battle tanks or the Necron monolith. Like, you can't bring these mega units that aren't even really mega units in 40k 10th edition. They're kind of just, like, I've played against 3 Dorns, and you can sort of kind of deal with it if you have 2,000 points to play with and you bring enough anti-tank in your army, because you have to assume that you might play into knights, and so you do have to have a good amount of anti-tank. At 1,000 points, you have to throw that all out the window and say, we're gonna load up on like troops, fast attack, limited characters, and those sorts of games can be really, really fun. They actually kind of feel very old school 40k. The turns move a little quicker, you're scoring points quicker, the game is bouncing back and forth between you and your opponent a little bit quicker. It just feels really, really nice. And so it kind of felt like this is a weird little niche of 40k that I've carved out for myself because no one is playing in 1,000-point 40k. But the new deck is actually built to facilitate 1,000-point games. In the article, it says, incursion games have a fresh unit restrictions and their own deployment to further balance smaller games. That would be kind of perfect, and I am super interested to see how Games Workshop is going to restrict units. Is it gonna be by points? Is it just gonna be by army? Because, like, there are some things that aren't terribly expensive, but probably a little much for smaller games. Like, would Catan Shard of the Nightbringer be allowed in a smaller points game? I could see him maybe slipping by, but not Silent King. But there's gonna be things that are right up on the edge of the points limit, like Sisters of Battle. Morven Val with the squad of Paragon Warsuits is a really expensive brick of a unit that you never take. You never take one without the other. Is Games Workshop gonna know to say, like, yeah, you can't bring anything that's more than 300 points. By the way, if you would build a unit that costs more than 300 points, you can't bring that either. There's a couple of weird little edge cases, although I would play up against Morven Val and Paragon Warsuits in a 1,000-point game, but I would not want to go up against a Baneblade at 1,000 points. There's just wait, like, if you look across the board at your opponent and you see a force and you're like, GG, we're done here. let's re-rack the game and maybe you lose the Knight Cerastus. I'm really excited to try out this new deck and get some more small games of 40k in, and if Games Workshop is gonna balance the game at 1,000 points, that might be the best way to play 40k. There will definitely be something to jump into that 2,000 points and bringing everything, but sometimes everything isn't as much fun. I find when I'm writing a 2,000 point list for 40k, I have to pick things that aren't that much fun. Like, I play Black Templars, I love close combat, getting right in my opponent's face with some chain swords, but I gotta bring gladiators, because what if I go up against guard? What if I go up against knights? Like, you gotta bring some good, boring, sit on the backfield, anti-armor. Or maybe I guess I could do like Eradicators in a Repulsor. But I don't know, I've never managed to get the Repulsor really singing in my games of 40k. Either just gets melted off the board, or I would much rather have like a Land Raider with a squad of Assault Centurions, which got they didn't get a points decrease, but the Devastator squad did get a pretty big points decrease. There's Centurions, even though they're old school Space Marines and there's some worry that they're gonna get squatted out of the game, I think they have a place in the Space Marine Codex. They're really, really fun. They're toughness 7, I think there's ways of getting them to toughness 8 depending on which detachment you take. 7 is kind of an breakpoint because toughness 8 is not super prevalent. I don't know. At Centurions, their 2-up save with no invuln is actually not that tanky. You forget about how much you roll that 4-up invuln for Terminators when you don't have that 4-up invuln. I didn't play much Warhammer 40,000 in 9th edition. I played a bunch in 8th edition, and I've played a ton in 10th edition. And I definitely have some thoughts when it comes to 40k. And, we're getting kind of close to the theoretical end of this edition. And after taking a look at the release schedule for codexes, we're kind of coming up on the end. And I have some thoughts on what Games Workshop could change if there was going to be an 11th edition. But this new mission deck actually gets really, really interesting. Before we had the secret missions, I've mentioned them before with the Angron thing that was really annoying me. But the new secret missions, the challenge cards, are straight out of Age of Sigmar Spearhead. I really, really like these. In the article, it says that if you're down by more than 5 points, we've got catch-up mechanics for 40k, which is really nice because 40k is a high-scoring game. Like a perfect game of 40k is 100 points. It's really easy to be back by 5. I could see me doing a challenge card and then my opponent doing a challenge card and then me doing another challenge card and then my opponent doing another challenge card, as opposed to the secret missions just being secret mission, it's either gonna win me the game or I've already lost, so we're just playing for the love of the game here. In the article, it shows off 2 of these mission cards, Force a Breach. And so these cards, they have 2 effects. They have a really, really easy to score secondary, or they have a power-up. And that's really, really interesting. Especially, if you're down by 5 points and you're like, I will 100% get this card off. And if I can do okay on primary, if I can just do something on primary, then I'm back in the game. I've caught up. That's really, really good. Force a Breach is a really interesting 0 CP stratagem. And it's not a very sexy ability, but when your unit is selected to move, it can move over other models. Essentially, it gives you fly. This can definitely get you out of a jam. If your opponent has move blocked you from an objective, you can just be yoink, and then bounce over them and hop onto that objective and secure the point. And if you can secure it in your point, or I guess I'm thinking about the old Pariah Nexus mission deck, but there's 2 cards that want you in the middle of the board, the direct center of the board. And so this would be a really nice way. 0 CP, you bounce right onto that objective and then you take it from your opponent. That could be really, really nice. The other ability card that we see is Renewed Focus. In your shooting phase, 1 unit from your army that has not been selected to shoot or fight this phase, until the end of the phase, each time a model makes an attack, reroll a hit roll of 1 and a wound roll of 1. This is also really, really good, especially for those attacks where you're rolling a lot of dice. Getting just any sort of reroll helps get you a little closer to just the average, and then getting to reroll hit rolls of 1, reroll wound rolls of 1, especially if you're trying to get devastating wounds to pop off or sustained hits to pop off. That can be a really, really nice ability. If you're Space Marines and it kind of gives you a little baby second Oath of Moment, that can be a really, really nice ability. And then these challenge missions are just super crazy easy. Action. Start of the shooting phase, 1 unit from your army that is not within your deployment zone and wholly within 9 inches of 1 or more battlefield edges, scored 3 VP. Super easy, barely an inconvenience. Almost guaranteed you're gonna have some unit just set up perfectly to do that. And the other one I see is Establish Comms. Action, 1 unit from your army, 15 inches away from all other enemy units. 1 unit from your army that is more than 15 inches away from all other units from your army. Yeah, so just 1 guy out there by himself, immediately score 3 victory points. Boom. These catch-up cards do seem really, really nice, super easy. I kind of wish every card in the deck was like this because that's how Spearhead is, and it's really, really nice. Spearhead is a much smaller game with fewer units played on a smaller board in Age of Sigmar, so the fight phase is the most important phase, where in 40k, the shooting phase is kind of the most important phase. I think these cards are great. I'm really excited to get a chance to play with them. And I think that 10th edition has really had a nice progression of just kind of getting better and better and better. Looking at the release schedule for 10th edition, we've gotten almost every single codex, and at Adepticon, the reveal show, they showed off kind of the roadmap for what's next, and a little finagling and reshuffling because they showed off before what was coming, and now it's not different, but it's a little reorganized. Right now, we're getting Thousand Suns, Space Wolves, World Eaters, Death Guard. Then in the future, we're getting Black Templar Codex. We'll get to see if Games Workshop can write a better Space Marine detachment than Righteous Crusade. I bet they can't. I bet Righteous Crusade is just the hottest, most cooked Space Marine detachment of all time. It's wonderful. After Black Templar, then Grey Knights, Chaos Knights, Imperial Knights. And then they kind of showed off that there will be something Salamanders and Gravis armor, something Leagues of Votann, hopefully the rest of the Leagues of Votann range, because Leagues of Votann do not have enough stuff yet. And then something Imperial Fists. Now there's one codex. If they do all of that, there will be one codex that is missing, and that is Drukhari. Where's the Drukhari Codex, Games Workshop? Please do a Drukhari Codex. I don't just want to be, Yvrane's helpers. I want a fully fledged rulebook. We have plenty of units, and if you wanted to give us some more, I wouldn't complain. And if you wanted to do Plastic Beastmaster and Plastic Court of the Archon, Plastic Grotesques, Plastic Uriel Ventress, or not Uriel Ventress, Huron, not Huron Blackheart either. Urian Rakarth, the homunculus character. They wanted to give us those in plastic, and then maybe some new witches. That'd be really, really nice. Other than that, I think Dark Eldar is in a really, really nice spot. Also, just remember to actually put the Tantalus into the Legends so that the rules exist somewhere, because Tantalus, I just got a chance to play with the Tantalus. They're actually really, really nice. 12 shots of strength 10 with easy ability for rerolls is really, really nice. It's a really nice shooting profile on a nice beefy boat that in Sky Splinter Assault you can give a 4-up invulnerable save. Mwah! It's a really, really fun unit to play around with, especially if you have 2 of them. I got 2 of them. If Games Workshop does everything that they promised, and then Dark Eldar at the end of that, we will be everything. We'll have all the different codexes, but if Games Workshop sticks to their 3-year cycle of game releases, then we can kind of expect 40k 11th edition summer of next year. Now, if I had to guess, we're gonna get a 10.5 edition because 10th edition is fine. The 10th edition is good. I like the deck. I like how everything works. Couple of little things that I would change, but other than that, it's pretty solid. And there is some precedent for a very soft edition change. We saw a very soft edition change from 5th edition to 6th edition, where not even all of the 5th edition codexes have came out, and 6th edition used the 5th edition codexes, but they just wanted to get to 6th edition, I guess because they wanted to publish a new rulebook, or they just wanted to fix some things. And then 6th went into 7th edition, and 7th edition was a dumpster fire, and so Games Workshop killed it on 2 years to give us 8th edition, and 8th edition was a breath of fresh air. And then 9th edition was kind of a very soft relaunch of 8th edition, and then boop, hard reset to 10th edition. And my big complaint with 10th edition is the list building. In 10th edition, kind of a new thing in the history of 40k, there's no list building is take whatever you want, but no more of 3 of each thing. And some armies can get around 3 of each thing because some singular miniatures have multiple data sheets. And so don't worry, guard players, you can bring infinite Bane, or not basilisks, Leman Russ battle tanks. You can bring as many battle tanks as you want to the happiness of no other 40k players. I would like to see some kind of army list building back in the game to kind of force people into certain choices. Games Workshop has been trying to make people bring battle line, which is usually the most boring thing, but you should have tactical Marines in your army. You should have Eldar Guardians. You should have Kabalite Warriors. You should have Orc Boys. You should kind of want to bring those things. And so I think maybe bump up those data sheets a little bit, maybe tone down some of the most powerful data sheets, and just have, make it so that people want to bring some of the chaff, some of the normal things you would expect to see in these armies. And then, bring a little less Rogaldorn battle tank, a little less Tyrannofex, a little less Avatar of Cain in every single Eldar list I've ever seen in my life. It was definitely exciting at the launch of 10th edition when you could make your army anything, but anything is a little bit too broad, because then it just becomes an arms race of, well, what is the best thing in the Codex? Whatever that thing is, I'll take 3 of it, and then I'll take 3 of the next best thing, and I'll take 3 of the next best thing, and I'll take 3 of the next best thing. I do like how characters now add their buff to the units, and so it gives you these fun plays of, well, how much can I juice my units? And then you just end up playing again with like, your army will consist of like 3 super juiced units, and then a whole bunch of things that can actually do objectives and score primaries and secondaries and things. And I feel like there's definitely been a lot of really fun, fluffy, flavorful lists in 10th edition. Even at the competitive level, there is a Black Templar list in France that was like 111 Crusader Squad Marines. It's beautiful. It's beautiful that just swept the tournament, because nobody can deal with that many 2-up save, I think 5-up or 6-up / 5-up invulnerable save bodies. Like, those sorts of lists do pop up here and there, and they are facilitated by the anything goes rule, but I think a little bit more structure in the army list building. Or maybe you can go unstructured, but you face penalties for that. So that could be another way to handle it. Like, you can bring whatever you want, but you start at a penalty, or it costs you a certain number of points to do that. And so you have to weigh up like, well, do I want to run all the Catan in Necrons? Or do I want to run, a bunch of Necron warriors and Immortals and Cryptex and the Necron things, and just bring a couple of the Catans? Really, that and all of the 10th edition codexes still working would be the only thing I'd really be looking for in 40k 11th edition. Make it a 10.5 edition, and maybe make sure that 1,000-point games can get played really, really fun. I think a lot of people would think that 40k is garbage until they do alternating activation. I don't think alternating activation is the perfect thing for 40k. I like that 40k is I go, you go, because it's a grand strategy war game. And so I think being able to see your opponent, see what they do, and then you get to do all of your things, I actually do think that works better for what 40k is. I've played, like, alternating activation is wonderful in a skirmish game. It's so great, you're bouncing back and forth between you and your opponent. But some of the problems of alternating activation, especially at a grand army scale level, is it kind of defeats turns. Like, you don't feel like a turn is happening when the game just bounces back and forth 11 times. And then you're like, oh, I guess everyone activated. All right, so we just take away all the tokens and then activate them all again. That doesn't feel like, turn 1 has ended and turn 2 is starting, and turn 2 is ended, turn 3 is starting. And it's hard to do those big grand strategies of like, oh my gosh, I need to go strengthen my western flank. And so you start moving all of your units that way because your opponent did the same, or maybe you want to abandon the western flank. I do like I go, you go in 40k. I think it works really, really well. And there's a lot of great games that do alternate activation. So if I'm in the mood for that style of gameplay, I can just play those games. I'm totally okay with 40k being the I go, you go, even though sometimes it's a rough you go, and I'm just sitting here and my guys are just getting stomped. But I feel like that's happening a little bit less and less. Ooh, as long as I'm wishlisting, also Games Workshop, figure out terrain so it's not just L walls. L walls absolutely everywhere on the board is the only way you can play, because shooting is so ungodly powerful that if your opponent can't hide their entire army turn 1, the game is just over. Figure out something. I think that they can cut the damage potential and the range of all weapons in half. Close combat weapons too. Cut it all right down the middle. If a gun shoots 24 inches, it should be 12-inch maximum range. And maybe there's a penalty for shooting at that maximum range. Yeah, there's 40k is very, very, very killy. But if everything was cut in half, and maybe you're playing a 1,000-point game, like, I think that could be really fun. I just want to play with my toys. I want to play with my toys, and taking them off the board turn 1 is not a fun way to play with my toys. But having my, a squad of tactical marines in a slap fight with some Necron death marks all game long is wonderful. I remember, I have a vivid memory of that happening in a game where we just kept whiffing our dice all game long. Nothing was happening. Like, one Necron would die and then come back to life next turn. It was great. It was glorious. The event, that was the only thing that happened that game. I'm sure objectives were scored and one of us won or lost, but the only thing I remember is that Necron on Space Marine slap fight. And those are the moments that make 40k a good game. I don't know if I'm hopeful that we get an 11th edition next year, but if we get it, I'm hopeful that it won't be too big of a shakeup and it'll kind of just be business as usual, but there's a new rule book, hopefully a new rule book with the 44-page FAQ folded into it. Games Workshop, it's hard to keep up with your rules. But you know what it's not hard to keep up with? EonsOfBattle.com. EonsOfBattle.com is the place to find our merch like the Nick and J dice, and it is the best way to support us doing what we do with a membership. Each month, members get a credit they can use on our new multi-terrain packs or any previous pack we have ever made. This April, we're going hard into skirmish fantasy warfare with 3 themes. The Mythical Forest, a set of fantastical trees held aloft by otherworldly levitating stones and waterfalls with the power of life. The Eternal Graveyard, a desolate shrine to the forces of death, macabre headstones piled against the last remnants of a long-forgotten cemetery, and the Cannibal Camp, a ramshackle encampment where the marauders can divide up their spoils and cook up their victims. These sets are designed with storytelling in mind and are the right size and shape for all the popular fantasy games. You can match the theme of your army, making your beloved collection look good while dominating the battlefield. These sets are available on our website as STLs, and don't worry if you don't have a 3D printer, they are available physically, printed for you. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of Warhammer 40k 10th edition right now? I think it's fine. I think it's pretty darn good. There's a couple of little things that I would change, but I'm excited for the new mission cards. And let me know what you think of the codexes and how Dark Eldar doesn't seem to be getting a codex. I'm excited for Leagues of Votann because I assume they're gonna get new models, but Dark Eldar, I don't have grand hopes for Dark Eldar. It's not looking good for the pointiest of the elves. Thanks for watching.